If you have been waiting years for Florida to finally give you a break on price, this is the video you have been waiting for, because in one corner of this state, it is actually happening right now. In a specific cluster of Florida towns, home prices are not just cooling off, they are down by double digits from where they were. And in one town, a single neighborhood has given back more than 21% of its value since the peak. 21%. On a $400,000 home, that is more than $80,000 of value gone in about 3 years. But before you get too excited and before you get too frightened if you already own in one of these places, I have to tell you the one thing that makes this story completely different from the doom headlines you have already seen. This is not a market falling apart. This is a market quietly letting the air out of a balloon that never should have been inflated in the first place. And once you understand why these 10 specific towns are dropping and the one honest catch that nobody trying to sell you a bargain will ever mention, you will know exactly whether this is your golden opportunity or your expensive trap. Today, I am counting down the 10 Florida towns where home prices are dropping fastest right now, measured the only way that actually matters from their peak down to today, using Zillow's home value data and Redfin's inventory numbers, both named so you can check every figure yourself. I'm going to end with the one caveat that separates a smart buyer from a sorry one. And I'm going to be honest with you about a number in the title, because most channels would not be. Let us get into it. Let me name the villain first, because almost every headline gets it wrong. It is tempting to blame insurance, and look, Florida insurance is genuinely brutal. I have made entire videos about it. But insurance is not the reason these 10 towns specifically are dropping while other Florida towns are holding steady or even setting record highs. The real villain is far simpler, and it is written right into the price history of every single town on this list. The villain is inventory. Too many homes for sale and not enough buyers left who want them. Here is exactly how it happened, because the story is the same in all 10. Between early 2020 and the middle of 2022, these towns did not just appreciate, they went vertical. Punta Gorda home prices rose more than 70% in barely 2 years. Cape Coral rose more than 60%. That was not normal growth, it was a stampede fueled by two things that have both now vanished. The first was record low interest rates. The second, and the bigger one, was an enormous wave of out-of-state buyers, cash in hand, fleeing colder and more expensive states during the pandemic and pouring into cheap, sunny Southwest Florida. Then both engines shut off at once, rates climbed, and that migration wave did not just slow, it nearly stopped. Florida's net gain from people moving in from other states fell from over 300,000 people at the peak to around 23,000 last year. Read that again. The tide of deep-pocketed buyers that drove these prices to the moon simply went home. And when the buyers disappeared, all the homes those buyers would have bought just sat there. Listings piled up, months of supply climbed far above the national average, and when a seller has 10 neighbors also trying to sell and almost no buyers walking through the door, there is only one thing that seller can do: cut the price, then cut it again. That is the entire story. It is not a mystery, and it is not a disaster. It is a market that got wildly overpriced and is now doing the healthy, painful work of finding its way back to earth. And I want you to feel how completely the power flipped, because it explains every price cut on this list. At the peak, a seller in Cape Coral could list a home on a Friday, hold an open house on Saturday, and choose between 5 offers by Sunday night, several of them over asking, most of them cash, many of them from buyers who never even saw the home in person. The seller held all the cards. Today, that same seller lists the home and waits, and waits. The open house draws 2 couples, both of them lowballing, both of them financing, both of them fully aware that 10 nearly identical homes are for sale on the next street. In 3 years, the exact same house went from a bidding war to a begging war, and nothing about the house changed. Only the number of buyers did. That is what a correction actually is on the ground. It is not drama. It is leverage quietly changing hands. One more number proves it beyond argument. At the peak of the frenzy, the analysts at Moody's calculated that Punta Gorda was overvalued by nearly 58%. After everything you are about to see, that same market is now overvalued by only about 9%. That is not a market breaking. That is a bubble deflating, almost exactly as much as it needed to. Now, from 10 down to 1, here are the towns where it is happening fastest. Number 10 is Sarasota itself, the crown jewel of the Gulf Coast, and it starts our list because even the nicest address in the region did not escape. Sarasota is genuinely beautiful, cultured, and beloved, and its home values have still slipped meaningfully from their peak, with the wider metro that carries its name down more than 17% from the top. Sarasota is the gentlest drop on this list precisely because its desirability gives it a floor the rougher towns do not have. But the fact that even Sarasota is down is the tell. When the tide goes out this far, it pulls back the prize properties too, just more slowly. If the crown jewel gave back this much, imagine what happened to the towns that were pure speculation. And that is the useful thing about starting with Sarasota. It sets the floor. Whatever the drop is in the most desirable town on the coast, the drop in the least desirable town nearby will be deeper, because desirability is the only thing holding any of these prices up now that the out-of-state money is gone. Every step down this list is a step away from that protection. Number 9 is Palmetto, up in Manatee County, just across the river from Bradenton. Palmetto is a smaller, more working-class Gulf town, and it rode the exact same rocket as everyone else, which means it is riding the same descent back down. As part of the Northport, Sarasota, and Bradenton market that is down over 17% from its peak, Palmetto's more modest homes have shed real value, and because buyers here are far more sensitive to interest rates than the cash buyers up in Sarasota, the pullback has been quicker to bite. Palmetto is a reminder that in this correction, the more ordinary the town, the more exposed it was, because it had the least cushion when the speculative money left. Number 8 is Bradenton, Palmetto's larger neighbor, and Bradenton is where you can see the inventory villain most clearly on the ground. This is a mid-sized city that built and sold aggressively during the boom, and now Redfin's data shows homes sitting on the market far longer than they did 2 years ago, with a large share of sellers cutting their asking price before they find a buyer. Down more than 17% as part of its metro, Bradenton is the picture of a market where the sellers have not fully accepted the new reality yet, which is exactly why the days on market keep climbing. The homes are not overpriced by accident, they are overpriced by hope, and the market is slowly, relentlessly correcting that hope. And if this way of understanding the drop as inventory and vanished demand rather than some vague sense of doom is clarifying things for you, do me a quick favor and tap the like button. It genuinely helps push the honest version of this out past the panic headlines, and that is the whole reason I make these. Number 7 is Bonita Springs, down in Lee County between Naples and Fort Myers, and Bonita is a fascinating case because it is genuinely upscale and still could not hold its peak. This is a market that was heavily driven by second home buyers and seasonal residents, the exact buyers who evaporated first when the pandemic migration reversed and interest rates spiked. When a town depends on people buying a home they do not strictly need, that town is the most fragile of all when the mood shifts, because a second home is the first thing anyone reconsiders. As part of the Cape Coral and Fort Myers market that is down nearly 19% from its peak, Bonita Springs shows that even money does not protect a town from a correction when the buyers simply choose to wait. And wait is the key word, because many of these owners are not distressed at all. They bought before the boom, they have enormous equity, and they are simply refusing to sell into a soft market. That standoff is part of why the drop has been slow rather than sudden. The sellers who do not have to move are sitting tight, so the prices only fall as fast as the sellers who genuinely must sell are forced to cut. Number 6 is Lehigh Acres, back in Lee County, and this one is the clearest example of raw oversupply on the entire list. Lehigh Acres is a vast grid of affordable homes and buildable lots, and during the boom, builders and speculators went absolutely wild here because the land was cheap and the demand looked endless. It was not endless. Now Lehigh is left with an enormous overhang of homes and new construction competing directly against each other. And when new builds are fighting existing homes for the same shrunken pool of buyers, prices have nowhere to go but down. Lehigh Acres is what happens when the shovels keep digging long after the buyers have gone quiet. It is the inventory villain in its purest, most physical form. And there is a cruel twist for existing owners here. When a builder is sitting on unsold new homes, the builder does not just cut the price, the builder throws in incentives, covers closing costs, and buys down the interest rate, things a regular family selling their used home simply cannot match. So in a town like Lehigh Acres, the person hurt worst is not the speculator, it is the ordinary owner trying to sell a normal home, while a builder next door is effectively giving new ones away. The oversupply does not just lower prices, it changes who can even compete. And here is the question I want you holding as we climb into the top 5, because it is the whole point of this video. If a town is down 20% from its peak, is it finally cheap? Or is it just less absurdly expensive than it was? Hold that thought, because the answer, which I will give you at the very end, is the single most important thing in this entire video, and almost nobody talks about it. Number 5 is Fort Myers, the heart of Lee County, and now we are into the deep drops. Fort Myers sits at the center of a metro that is down nearly 19% from its 2022 peak, one of the 3 steepest declines of any metro area in the entire United States. Fort Myers had everything working against it once the boom ended. It had a massive amount of boom-era construction. It took a direct and devastating hurricane hit that scared away buyers and spiked insurance. And it had leaned heavily on exactly the out-of-state migration that dried up. All 3 forces pushed the same direction, downward, and Fort Myers has been giving back its pandemic gains steadily ever since. And notice something important as we cross into the deepest drops. Every single town from here up is a Lee, Charlotte, or Sarasota County town. This correction is not spread evenly across Florida. It is concentrated, almost surgically, in the exact stretch of southwest Gulf Coast that spiked the hardest and overbuilt the most. 40 miles inland in the very same state on the very same day, there are towns hitting brand new record highs, 2 Floridas moving in opposite directions, and this list is the falling half. Number 4 is Cape Coral, and Cape Coral has quietly become the single most talked about correction market in the country. Its typical home value, according to Zillow, now sits around $337,000, down about 6% in just the past year, and down close to 19% from its peak back in the spring of 2022. Cape Coral is the poster child for the whole boom and bust cycle. It is a city of tens of thousands of nearly identical canal homes, which means when the market turns, every seller is competing against 100 carbon copies of their own house. There is no scarcity to protect anyone. Combine that with the highest concentration of boom-era speculation anywhere in the region, and you get the steepest, most visible correction in Florida. Cape Coral rose faster than almost anywhere, and it is falling faster than almost anywhere for the exact same reason. There was simply too much of it, and it is still building. Even now, with prices down and inventory high, construction continues, which means the supply keeps growing into a market where demand already left. Until that stops, Cape Coral will keep testing new lows, because you cannot drain a bathtub while the tap is still running. Number 3 is Northport in Sarasota County, and Northport earns its high spot because it was the affordable dream that turned into the cautionary tale. Northport was farmland and cheap new construction that got discovered during the boom and shot up in price as families and remote workers poured in, chasing the last affordable piece of the Gulf Coast. Then the tide went out. Measured from its 2022 peak, the typical Northport home is down around 20%, and Redfin shows homes here sitting on the market for roughly 80 days before they sell. Northport is the town that was sold to everyone as the smart, affordable alternative, and the people who believed that story at the very top are the ones holding the deepest losses today. And sorting exactly this, which Florida towns are a genuine opportunity right now and which ones are still a trap dressed up as a discount, is the whole reason the Florida Buy and Avoid list for 2026 exists. It lays out 40 Florida towns, 20 to buy and 20 to avoid, in one place, with the real price and value picture checked on every single one. The link is sitting in the description right below this video. If you want the full map before you commit to anywhere, that is where it lives. Number 2 is Punta Gorda in Charlotte County, and here I have to be completely straight with you, because this is where honesty matters most. If you measure the entire Punta Gorda metro area, it is down about 25% from its peak, the single steepest decline of any market in the state of Florida, and one of the steepest in the whole country, 25%. But I'm not going to going to put 25% in your head as the town number because it is not. That 25 is the whole metro, which sweeps in a lot of surrounding area. At the tighter town and county level, Charlotte County sits down around 22% from its peak, still staggering, still the deepest on this list. Punta Gorda took repeated direct hurricane hits. It spiked more than 70% during the boom, and it had the highest overvaluation of anywhere in the state. Every single force in this video hit Punta Gorda harder than anywhere else. It is the epicenter, and the only reason it is not number one is that I am ranking this list by the cleanest verified town level number, and there is exactly one town that gives this video its title. Number one is Venice in Sarasota County, and Venice is number one for a very specific reason. In one Venice neighborhood, single-family home prices are down about 21.5% from their 2022 peak. That is the number in the title of this video, and it is the deepest verified drop at the true town level that I could stand behind. Venice is a genuinely lovely coastal town, an island core, a historic downtown, real beaches, and it still gave back more than a fifth of its value, which tells you this correction is not about a town being undesirable. It is about a town being wildly overpriced and then losing the buyers who made that price possible. One home in that Venice neighborhood tells the whole story. It was bought during the boom for $565,000, listed a couple of years later, cut in price 4 separate times, and finally sold for $455,000. That is a real family, a real house, and a real loss of more than $100,000, and it is the single clearest picture of what this entire video is about. Venice is number one, not because it is the worst place to live, but because it holds the deepest honest number, and honest is the whole point. Now, the caveat, and I need you to hear this more than anything else I have said, because it is the difference between a smart buyer and a sorry one. These towns are dropping fast, but falling is not the same as cheap. Let me say that again, because it will save you real money. Falling is not the same as cheap. Even after everything you just heard, even after Cape Coral gave back 19% and Venice gave back more than 21%, the typical home in these towns is still worth far more than it was before the pandemic. Statewide single-family homes remain something like 45% above their 2019 levels, and in these towns, even after the drop, the median is still roughly 20% above where it sat in early 2021. So when someone tells you a Florida town is down 20% from its peak, the honest translation is not that it is cheap. It is that it is less wildly overpriced than it was at the most insane moment in the history of the market. The peak was the fantasy. Today's price is closer to reality, but it is not a fire sale. And anyone selling you one is selling you the peak comparison and hoping you do not do the second half of the math. So here is how I would actually use this list, and it is genuinely good news if you are patient. These 10 towns are where the leverage has swung hardest toward buyers. Sellers are cutting, homes are sitting, and for the first time in years, you can negotiate without a line of 10 other bidders behind you. That is real, and it is an opportunity. But do not buy the peak to today drop as if it were a discount off fair value. Do your own math. Compare the price today against what the home sold for in 2019 or 2020 before the madness, not against the fantasy peak. If today's price is still way above that pre-boom number, the correction may not be finished because several of these markets are still running well above where local incomes can actually support them. The drop is real, the bargain is conditional, and knowing the difference is the entire skill. Here is the exact check I would run before making an offer on any home in these 10 towns. Pull up the property's own sale history, which Zillow and Redfin both show you for free, and find what it sold for in 2019 or early 2020, before the frenzy. That number, plus a normal few percent a year, is roughly what the home should be worth in a sane market. If today's asking price is close to that, you may have found genuine value. If it is still far above it, the seller is anchoring you to a peak that is never coming back, and the correction likely has further to run. The peak comparison is the seller's favorite weapon. The pre-boom comparison is yours. So here is my question for you, and I read every one of these. Are you watching one of these 10 towns waiting for the bottom, or are you already there, feeling the drop firsthand? Tell me in the comments which town you are watching, And what you are actually seeing on the ground, the price cuts, the homes sitting, the deals appearing, because there are people watching right now trying to time this exact market, and the view from the street is worth more than anything I can put on a chart. And if this was useful, the video you want next is the flip side of this exact story. The Florida towns quietly hitting brand new record highs this year because they are almost all inland and single family. The precise opposite of these overbuilt coastal markets, and watching the two back to back will show you the real map of where Florida value is moving. Go watch that one next. And subscribe to Florida Pulse because I track these town-by-town numbers every single month, and this correction is still moving, which means the bottom is not in yet, and I will show you exactly when it arrives. We will see you in the next one.